Y'all really thought I wasn't going to talk about Azamina Chimera? Please. Hey guys, Otaku here, back with another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video of the Chimera variety. The Rage of the Abyss is like 3 weeks away, something like that, and with it comes the Azamina cards. Everyone's talking about how Azamina is going to make Snake Eyes the best deck again, because it's not currently the best deck, and that's true, but I think a deck that people are looking past is Chimera, because once you know it, the Azamina cards are all illusions, and they're really easy to make raw in Chimera. So today we are going to be looking ahead like we did with the Fiendsmith cards, and we're going to be looking at a Fiendsmith Azamina Chimera build. Keep in mind, this is of course a work in progress. It is not currently a definite set-in-stone build that you will need to run. You could even just not run the Fiendsmith cards. It's really up to you. But before we do jump on over to the deck list, I do want to remind you all to continue to support the video so I can continue to make videos like this one by leaving a like on the video if you enjoy, but also leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are on the Azamina Fiendsmith Chimera. And also, if you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel so I can continue to make videos like this one. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Fiendsmith Azamina Chimera. Alright, so as you can see here, we have essentially no hand traps. We are running Bestials, Fuaros, and the Infinite Impermanence, mainly because Fuaros can just draw us into better hands if we open really badly, and so it can just fix bad hands. Infinite Impermanence is just a board breaker, or it can stop our opponent from going into full combo. And then the Bestials are technically hand traps, but they are good for going first or second. Fiendsmith, of course, will still be a relevant engine going into the next format, so Bestials are a threat to that. But Bestials just overall are very powerful cards, so we will be running those as well. One of the Magnamut, one of the Druis, and one of the Baldrake. You can run 2 Druis if you want. I think Baldrake also brings a lot of value here. But from here, we have no other hand traps. We are playing all gas, no breaks. For the Chimera size of things, we will be running 2 Big Wing Baphomet as per usual, 3 of the Kotal as per usual, 3 of the Gazelle as per usual, 2 of the Mirror Sword Knight, not always as per usual. You can run 3. I think we're already at 42 cards. We want to stay as consistent as possible, so I only run the 2. But also, we don't want it conflicting with the normal summon of Gazelle. We are running 3 Nightmare Apprentice as per usual, because this card is just a 1-card starter for the deck. It does play into Droll a little bit, because if you don't have Chimera Fusion, she's not the way to get to it right away. So if Droll is still relevant in the upcoming format, she of course will be playing into it, which I think Droll will still be very relevant, especially with Fuaros in the game. As for the witches, we are running 2 of the Black Witch and 2 of the White Witch. Diabellze, the original Sin Keeper. Diabellze was in here prior to the Sinful Spoils and the Azamina cards coming into the deck, but Diabellze is just very good because now that we're playing Sinful Spoil cards, we can just special her on our own turn. Black Witch, of course, is the 1-card combo to get you the Azamina cards, so of course we are running her, but she is also just a free body for link summoning. I have also considered running the Silvera trap card to give her more utilization as an omni negate, essentially, but we already do have an omni negate. But again, this is a work in progress build, so I might end up toying with that idea a little bit more. As for Fiendsmith stuff, we are running the Evil Hero package still. We are running Evil Hero Dusted Gold, 1 of Sinister Necrom. We are still running the Dark Fusion. I just think this is really good. Fusing into the Baphomet or the Magnum make it untargetable, but also the more we are fusing in this deck, the better. So, of course, we are still running the Dark Fusion. I have considered with the idea of cutting this because as we'll get into the extra deck, we're not too heavy into the Fiendsmith stuff this time around. We are running the 1 Lurie, the 2 Engraver, and the 1 Tract. As for the rest of the deck, we are running 3 of the Chimera Fusion. We are running 1 of the Azamina Ophioletus. Forgive my pronunciation. Some of these cards probably will have better localization when they come out. We are running 3 of the Wanted to get to the Witch. We are running 2 of Sinful Spoils Deception. This card's insane. It's also technically a burn card if you somehow end with it still face up on the board. So this is going to be crazy. I could almost expect this to get banned like Lacrima did, but we'll see. We also have 1 of the Sacred Azamina. Again, localization probably will butcher this, even though I think this one's fine. But this is the card that kind of gets the combo rolling once Deception is on board. And then we are running the 3 Infinite Impermanence. As for the extra, we are actually running 1 of every Azamina Fusion. I don't think every deck is going to be doing this, but Chimera can get away with it so easily. Azamina Moa Regina is the level 8 one that we can make on our opponent's turn, because we can just make this raw. We just need a level 6 or higher Fiend. Once you know it, Fiendsmith meets that prerequisite, but also the Baphomet Fusion can also be used as material, and then 1 illusion. We are running plenty of illusions for this. But basically what this does is that it is an ignition effect that you can target an illusion in your graveyard and then special summon it. And then when a Sinful Spoils or Azamina card or effect is activated, you can target up to 2 cards on the field, destroy them. This is interaction for our opponent's turn. If we summon this prior to activating the Ophieltis, and then we just kind of set up an ability to pop, it says up to, so we don't actually have to pop 2 cards. Plus that with Guardian Chimera, we can pop up to like 4 cards on our opponent's turn. Really, really powerful. And like I said, it is super easy to make. We could technically make this on our turn to help break boards if absolutely necessary. Most likely we are making this raw. We are not going to be summoning this off Sacred Azamina or the Ophieltis, because we would then have to send 2 Sinful Spoil cards to the graveyard, because it is up to every 4 levels. We are running the Azamina Murcielago. This card is part of the combo. You just use it. You summon it off of Sacred Azamina to search out the quick play Ophieltis. Other than that, it's not really seeing a whole lot. We then are running Rey Silvera. This is the Omni negate that also doubles the damage you do with your Azamina monsters, so that can be helpful for further OTK potential. But we are mainly just summoning this because it's an Omni negate. And then for the last Azamina, I am not going to try and pronounce this, but Azamina Soul. We are summoning this essentially for opponent turn interaction. If it's fusion summoned, you can target a card on the field, send it to the graveyard. It doesn't have to be your own card. So the perks here is that it only needs an illusion and a fiend. Super generic for our deck because we have plenty of illusions and plenty of fiends. So we can fuse into this on our opponent's turn just to send a card to the graveyard. There are a lot of decks that want their cards to be destroyed, which means Guardian Chimera or even Regina are not the play. So just sending a card to the graveyard can be a lot more beneficial. We then, of course, are running the rest of the Chimera Fiendsmith deck. We are running 2 Baphomet, 1 of the Illusion Beast for OTK potential, the Phantom Beast for hand rips. We have 1 Guardian Chimera. I think at this point we cannot fit 2 for this deck. We have 1 of Magnum Reliever, which can bridge into Fiendsmith stuff, but we are not super heavy into Fiendsmith this time around, so you might not want to bridge into that. I'm also actually just considering cutting Magnum because we have plenty of card popping that this isn't super necessary, and we only have Dark Fusion and Chimera Fusion. We do not have Poly anymore, so I am considering cutting this, but for now he's sticking. We then of course are running Necroquip. We're not running Aerial Eater, and as you'll see a little bit later, we're not running Sequence. I do not think those cards are necessary for this build simply because Sequence is only going into the Aerial Eater, and we're not running nearly as many Fiends as we were. There's not a whole lot of combo lines for that. We're also not running the Edgent package anymore, which means the Baphomet plus Chain is no longer combo. So I just don't think Sequence and Aerial Eater are necessary in this version of the deck. We are still, of course, running Chaos Angel. Easy board breaker, hard to out unless you are running specific cards. Tenpai can out this card pretty easily with Samurai Destroyer, but also it is just kind of our only answer to Shifter. A lot of our cards want to hit the graveyard. The Azamina cards can actually play a little bit more around Shifter, so it does give our deck a little bit more versatility against Shifter specifically. However, we still don't have like a super strong end board. We are still running Caesar. The main goal of the Fiendsmith engine at this point is just turbo out Caesar so the rest of our deck can play. If we don't run Fiendsmith, we are not able to run Caesar. We don't have the ability to make 2 level 6 Fiends onto the board to make Caesar a viable option, which means we are heavily exposed to the Nibiru. I think Caesar is still very powerful, but also Fiendsmith just gives us bodies, essentially. We still have them as Fiends, so we can use them to make more Azamina stuff. We are running the Fiendsmith Requiem, of course, obviously, and we're running 1 Muckraker because Muckraker helps us not only establish an end board that can be difficult to break because she can tribute Fiends instead of cards being destroyed, but also she helps us revive the Baphomet from the graveyard, which can further make sure we end on a Chimera Fusion, plus the ability to just fuse, essentially. Because if we end on 2 Chimera Fusions and Baphomet is able to search 1 of them, and then we have Gazelle in hand, we can fuse twice, which means we can guarantee that we're fusing into a Chimera Fusion-esque, either Baphomet, Chimera, or Chimera Illusion on our opponent's turn to make sure that the Sword Knight and the Codal are live. But also we have the ability to go into Guardian Chimera or Azamina Soul or just several other cards. Like I said, this build is still a work in progress. I don't think the hand traps are necessary this time around. I think if we just play all gas, no breaks, we can break through almost any hand traps that's going on. If we go second, we open the Fuaros, we just guarantee that we will be able to break through a lot of boards because we will be drawing a lot of cards, or our opponent just doesn't set up a board and play into the Fuaros. So I think this is a very strong build, but it is a work in progress, something I am still, of course, toying with, and obviously I will be updating you all when I make better builds. But enough of my chattering. Let's go over 2 combo lines to really see what kind of boards we are establishing. All right, so the first combo we're going to be looking at is if we open Diabellze or a way to get to her, or just really the full combo for Azamina. So in this example, we just drew a random 5 cards and we opened with the Wanted package. So we are just going to start in the draw phase. We are going to be activating the Wanted to add the Diabellze. We do this to avoid Droll, essentially, but also it could bait out an Ash Blossom. Opponent may think we're on the Snake Eyes deck, of course, but regardless, we're trying to, avoid Droll. From here, we will just go to the main phase, and we're not going to go straight into like Diabellze and go into the Azamina stuff, because if our opponent has Nib, we don't want to play into that as heavily as we are about to. In this exact example, I do take forever to get to Caesar. Regardless, even if they do hit us with Nibiru, we still would have been able to play through it. But to start, we will normal summon the Gazelle as per usual to bait out like Imperm or Valor or Ash Blossom. If they have Imperm or Valor, we will be able to dodge it because we have Chimera Fusion, but we are just going to fire off the Gazelle effect, and we are going to add the Baphomet. From here, if they have Droll, it's fine. We can kind of play under it. We don't absolutely need it. Like, if they do hit us with Droll, we can't get to the Azamina package, but that's fine. We can, again, still kind of play around it and build a pretty okay board. If we don't get Drolled here, we're just going to assume our opponent doesn't have Droll. We're going to fire off the Cornfield Coatl effect, and we are going to add the Mirror Sword Knight. We will then fire off Chimera Fusion, fusing away the Baphomet and the Mirror Sword Knight to get the Baphomet Fusion. We'll go chain 1 Baphomet Fusion, so that way we can't get ashed here. Also, Coatl's engraved, so if they have Imperm or Valor here, we will be fine from it. So we can't get ashed here, and then we're going to go Baphomet Engraved, target the Sword Knight to special the Sword Knight as chain 2. Off of the Baphomet Fusion, we are going to dump the Sinister Necrom, still obviously the best target to do that. We'll then just fire off the Chimera Fusion, so add it back to hand, so just to make sure, because if there's a reason we can't get the Baphomet back into the graveyard, or he can't stay on the field, then we need to make sure we still have this in hand. So we will just activate the Sinister Necrom here, banish for cost, special summon the Adusted Gold. We're up to 4 summons at this point. Like I said, we take forever to get to the Caesar, but this is kind of like the most optimal line for this exact hand. Otherwise, if we just turboed out into Caesar as best we could, it would have been a little bit more difficult to get to what we wanted to at the end board. But if we get nibbed, it's fine because it's 1 less card in their hand, but also we still have plenty of resources to get to what we want. We will just link 1 at this point into the Requiem, summon 5, which means if they nib here, we will still get the Engraver into the graveyard. We will just fire the Requiem, summon the Engraver. From here, we will go Requiem effect, equip itself to Engraver, contact, fuse into the Necroquip, and then if they don't nib me here, that's perfectly fine because now they can't nib me at all. So we will just summon out the Caesar with the Baphomet and the Necroquip, and from here again, unless they have Imperm nib, we should be fine. From here, I want to make sure I get the hand rip on the opponent's end phase, so we don't want to do anything with Gazelle, but also the cards in my hand, I do need to keep in my hand to get the rest of the end board. So we are just going to utilize the fact that Engraver is a fiend here, and we're going to use Engraver's effect, put back the Requiem for cost to summon him, and then we are going to fire out the Chimera Fusion, fusing Engraver and the Gazelle to make the Chimera King of Phantom Beasts. We'll go chain 1 Gazelle, add an illusion, chain 2 end phase rip from our opponent's hand, Chimera. The illusion we are going to add here off of the Gazelle is going to be Diabellze, the original Sin Keeper. The perks here is that we can just special Diabellze now because we run Sinful Spoil cards in the deck, and we have Wanted in the graveyard currently. So from here, we are just going to special summon the Diabellze, because what I want next, I want to make sure I can't get Impermed anymore. If they had Imperm, they probably would have already used it, but I want to make sure it's no longer a possibility. And then we'll send the Chimera on the field to the graveyard to special summon the Diabellze Black Witch, use her effect to set the Deception. We will then just flip Deception, because it is a continuous spell, use its effect, tribute away the Diabellze to add the Sacred Azamina. We will fire Sacred Azamina, sending the Deception to the graveyard to special summon the Rusiolago. We'll use Rusiolago's effect to add the Ophieltis to hand, so that way we have end board and opponent turn interaction. We will then just link away the Sword Knight and the Rusiolago for the Muckraker. The perks here about the Rusiolago is that it doesn't really have any further interaction from here, so we don't need it to stay on board. So it is just an extra body at this point. So we're going to link it away, and then we're going to activate Sacred Azamina, put the Rusiolago back to add the Azamina back to hand. That way it's an extra card in hand. This is a once per turn card, so we don't really need it anymore. So we then will just activate the Muckraker, special summon the Baphomet from the grave, discarding the Sacred Azamina that we just added back. Baphomet effect, add the Gazelle and the Chimera fusion, so we have further interaction on our opponent's turn. The cool thing here is, like, we have Nightmare Apprentice at hand, but at no point do we need to summon it because we don't have any further links in the deck to summon. If we had like Little Knight, sure, but there's just not a lot of room in the extra deck. So we don't really need to summon the Nightmare Apprentice here, so we have it for further crackback on our opponent's turn, or just a body on our turn. Since she's an illusion and Baphomet is a fiend, we can use it to special summon the other Azamina cards. So we just have like the option to do other things than just summon the Baphomet fusion. From here, it's pretty much done. We will just set the Ophiel to set the Chimera fusion. We will move to the end phase. Chimera will rip from our opponent's hand. We will use the Deception's effect since it was sent there this turn. It can then just reset itself into the back row. And that's really it. Like, this board doesn't look like a lot, but you have to think we're ending on Diabellze, meaning that we don't have to use the Chimera's effect in the graveyard to summon her back to the field on our opponent's turn. She's already there, which means if our opponent has any sort of quick play spells, they can't even activate them in the draw phase when we go to activate Chimera. We have Caesar already on board, meaning that any sort of Bestials, Nibiru, or fusion spells, or anything that's going to special summon a monster gets negated and destroyed. We have Chimera Fusion in the back row, which means we can further interact with our opponent to make sure that they just further can't play the game. We can do a multitude of combinations. If they have a way to out the Diabellze, then we can just fuse away the Baphomet and one of the two cards in our hand to bring her back with the Baphomet's effect. We have Muckraker to protect ourselves from board breakers, but at the same time, again, they have to set the board breakers. They can't use evenly. They can't use Droplet. They have to use stuff like Dark Ruler No More, which again, they will have to set it before they can activate it. We have Ophialtes to summon out the Omni Negate. We have the Sinful Deception, so that way that's our fodder to summon out the Omni Negate. And then we have the Codal and the Mirror Sword Knight in the graveyard, so when we do summon out the Baphomet, we have further graveyard interaction as well. But that is if we open the Sinful Spoils cards. What if we don't open them? What kind of board do we build if we don't see the Sinful Spoil cards? Alright, so combo if we don't see any Sinful Spoil cards, because the Sinful Spoil cards, or just like Witch in general, kind of makes the deck do some really crazy stuff, but there are going to be hands that you just don't see them. Unfortunately, the engines don't intertwine entirely like they would with Fiendsmith. You can't get to the Sinful Spoil cards as easily with the Chimera stuff, so it's unfortunately sometimes they don't always work together. So there will be games where you don't see that stuff, and that's fine. We will start, of course, by going to the main phase. We will just activate Chimera Fusion here. We don't want to normal summon the Sword Knight just yet because we can get it out onto the field without normal summoning it. So we are just going to fusion summon into the Baphomet by fusing away the Baphomet and the Mirror Sword Knight, summoning the Baphomet Fusion. We will use Baphomet Fusion's effect as chain 1, so it cannot be ashed, and we'll go Baphomet and Graves effect to summon the Mirror Sword Knight. That way, they have to imperm the Fusion Baphomet, or it's going to resolve. So if they don't have imperm, but they have ash, this is fine. We will then, of course, on chain 1, dump the Sinister Necrom. Obviously, we will then use the Chimera Fusion, add it back to my hand, and then we will just go Sinister Necrom effect, banish for cost, special summon the Adusted Gold. If this resolves, they either don't know what I'm doing or they don't have Ash. So to confirm if they don't have Ash or not, I mean, they will Ash this if they have it, but we will link one into the Requiem. Requiem effect, tribute for cost, special summon the Engraver, Requiem effect, equip itself to the Engraver, contact, fuse away into the Necroquip Princess. Alright, so here you could just turbo into Caesar. You are on summon like 6 or 7 already. So if they have nib, they could nib you here, but they kind of have to nib you here. So any play further you make here that doesn't summon again will be fine. So what I actually end up doing here is I end up going Engraver's effect in the hand, discard it for cost to add the Tract. Then we will go Necroquip Princess effect to draw a card. That way we just have extra advantage in our hand, extra cards in our hand. We could have possibly drawn in the Sinful Spoil stuff from here, which would have only made our end board even more powerful. But After this, we will just make Caesar. You could make Caesar before that. If you don't want to get greedy for the draw, then that's perfectly fine. You can make Caesar. It doesn't really change the outcome, so they either nib you there, they nib you when Engraver resolves, they nib you when Necroequip resolves. I mean, it's kind of the same result, so it's fine. It doesn't hurt any more than it would because Engraver's still going to add Tract. Tract is still going to get us into further plays. But we'll make the Caesar here. We will then go Mirror Sword Knight effect, Tribute for cost, Special Summon the Gazelle. Gazelle effect, we could add the Baphomet here, but we only have 2, and we don't really want the other one out of the deck currently. So we will just add another Chimera Fusion. That way we guarantee we're going to end on a Chimera Fusion. We will then just activate Tract, add the Luri, discard the Luri, special the Luri. Now, you could have put a Dusted Gold back with Engraver's effect here, and then add the Dusted Gold, discard a different card, and then add the Dark Fusion. I didn't find that nearly as valuable in this combo, but it really just depends on the matchup, what you think you're going to need for your end board. But we just add the Luri here, discard the Luri, special the Luri, and then we will fire Chimera Fusion, fusing away the Luri and the Gazelle for the Hand Rip Chimera. We will go Chain 1 Gazelle, add an Illusion, Chain 2 Chimera for end phase Hand Rip. We will add the Nightmare Apprentice off the Gazelle, and then we will, off of the Nightmare Apprentice, discard the Ball Drake to special the Apprentice. Apprentice effect. I considered adding Codal here, but I think the Diabellze is a lot more valuable of an end piece, and we can also get the Codal into the graveyard during our opponent's turn, so it is fine. We will add the Diabellze off the Nightmare Apprentice. We will then link to the Nightmare Apprentice and the Chimera away for the Muckraker. Muckraker effect, target the Baphomet Engrave, special the Baphomet, discard the Diabellze, and then we will activate Baphomet's effect, adding another Gazelle and another Chimera Fusion. At this point, all 3 Chimera Fusions are out of the deck. That's fine. We don't really want to draw into it typically, but we will just, from here, set 3 Infinite Impermanence and 2 Chimera Fusion. And then before we do go to the end phase and rip a card out of our opponent's hand, we will just activate Engraver, put Requiem back for cost, special the Engraver. The reason for this is because we don't have the Sinful Spoil stuff. We want to have these extra bodies on board to go into the Azamina cards we still can go into. Since we have 2 Chimera Fusions, we have the ability to fuse into 2 different monsters on our opponent's turn. We have the ability to make the Baphomet Fusion to dump Codal, make sure our stuff can't be targeted by card effects effectively. We will be able to revive the Diabellze because we have Chimera Engrave, but also if we fuse right out the gate, we can just revive her off of the Baphomet main deck monster with his effect. We also can make Guardian Chimera. We can make the Azamina monster that needs a Fiend and a Illusion monster because we will be able to add an Illusion off of Gazelle's Fusion effect. Then we can send a card from our opponent's field to the graveyard. But then we also, because we have Engraver on field, or because we have the ability to make the Baphomet Fusion, we could also go into the big Azamina card. That's less effective because we don't have Azamina cards or Sinful Spoil cards to activate to trigger his effect in this example, so I don't think that's nearly as powerful. But this end board is still very threatening because Muckraker also, again, prevents our board from being just auto-destroyed by board breakers. If they do hit me with Dark Ruler No More or Lightning Storm or Raigeki or something along those lines prior to me summoning out the Diabellze, we can just Tribute Await the Engraver and save our board. And that's really all I have for you guys today. Again, Azamina, Chimera, Fiendsmith, it's a deck that I've been having a lot of fun with testing, but it is something that is constantly evolving as I test it, messing with different ratios, different cards. Like I said, I really want to have the Silvera trap in the deck, so that way I technically have 2 Omni Negates between the Azamina Omni Negate and Silvera. Very powerful to have 2 Omni Negates on the end board, and also somewhat possible. It's something I'm still toying with. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Don't forget to leave a like on this video, but also if you're not already and you like Chimera or you just like competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content in general, consider subscribing to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. But with that, I'll see you all in the next video. See ya.